Hello there, my name's Chris Robinson, and welcome to the free Robinson Violin School course where we'll take adult beginners from scratch to 7 days later, performing your very first piece on the violin. This is day one, where we'll dive into the violin itself, how it makes sound, posture, holding the violin and the bow, and then also making our very first sound on the instrument. I'm ready to dive in. If you are, grab your violin and bow and let's get started. Okay, so here we are in day one. I will introduce the instrument and then also we will be making our very first sound on the violin. Very, very exciting. All right, so day one, these are the four things that we're going to be working on. So specifically how the violin works, how it makes sound, how to hold the violin, so posture and holding the violin on our left side of our body, how to hold the bow, which is in our right hand, and then how to create your very first sound on the instrument. Very exciting stuff. All right, so some beginning stuff here. So follow our channel. So YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whichever fits you. Those are our handles. Please share this free course. Share this free course with everyone you know. Let's get as many people learning the violin accessibly as possible and start a music making revolution. Let's do it. So warning here, this is the most important video in the course. I would highly recommend you not skip around or jump on to the next video if this seems a little bit too easy. It's best if we're all on the same page, okay? So day one here, so how the violin works. So before we actually start making sounds on the violin, I want to spend a few minutes helping you understand the instrument that you are about to learn. So one thing that I've noticed after teaching literally hundreds of students is that um, they often think that good violin playing is about talent, and it's absolutely not about talent at all. It's really about understanding a few simple principles and practicing them consistently. That is truly the most important thing here. So today we're going to get started with one of those principles, and that's understanding the instrument, the violin itself. Okay, so how the violin works, part one. So getting familiar with your violin. So we're going to go over the parts of the violin right now. So first, obviously I have my violin here. Let me grab it quick. So here's my violin. This is what it looks like. Yours will probably look a little bit similar to mine, front and back here. Okay, so I have a bunch of parts on the of the violin on the screen here. So I'll go over them in the order that they're listed at the very least. So this is called the scroll. Its main purpose here is mostly tonal. It does help improve the sound of the instrument. Of some violins do not have any kind of scroll. You can really tell actually the difference in sound, very interestingly. But it is very decorative as well, and almost all violins have them. And then as we get down to the pegs here, we have this little area right here called the peg box. And then the pegs are right here on the side. And there's four pegs, and they all correspond to one of the strings. And you can turn or twist them to change the tuning of the pegs. And then we also have, your violin might have four of these, but mine only has one for the E string. But these are called fine tuners. So basically, they both the pegs and the fine tuners have more or less the same exact function. They tune the strings themselves, change the pitches. But the fine tuners, you can make smaller adjustments to them by just turning quite easily. The pegs are a little bit more cumbersome. And basically, in some of the more professional model instruments, they will only have the E string for the fine tuner. One is because the higher pitch of the E string actually creates the intervals between just the next pitch over or something lower or higher is a lot smaller. So you need a little bit more of a finer adjustment here, and this makes that just a lot more easier than using a peg. The other reason why some of these advanced professional model instruments don't have fine tuners on on the other strings, is actually about sound. A lot of times the fine tuners will dampen the sound. Um, basically it'll lessen the vibrations that go through the tailpiece to the instrument in general. And we'll get more into how kind of the instrument creates sound in later on in this video. But if you're wondering, oh, well, Chris's violin doesn't have these, but mine does, maybe something's wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Yours is meant to have tuners there. And there's actually some performers who really prefer to have all the fine tuners on them anyways, because it does make it a little bit easier to tune quite quickly. Okay, so then the next here we have the fingerboard, which is this black piece of wood. It's made out of ebony, so it's a specific wood that is naturally black, and that is where we put our fingers on the fingerboard. Okay, and then this entire part of the violin is called the neck of the instrument. And a lot of times throughout all these videos, I will be referencing basically these kinds of the anatomy of the instrument, like, oh, put your left hand by the neck of the instrument, or maybe on the shoulders. So these are called the shoulders of the instrument. I also will attach a link in the video description so that you'll see kind of a layout anatomy of the violin itself. And that will be for your reference. Then we have obviously the strings. So we have our lowest string is the G string here, then the D string, then the A string, and then the E string. Okay, so those are our four strings. And we have a bridge, which is this piece of wood right here. And the bridge is not nailed or glued or anything like that. It's a freestanding piece of wood. And it does serve a really, really great purpose that I'll get into in just a second. And yeah, so it's completely freestanding. Maybe when you first got your violin, sometimes they don't actually have this on there. You have to like actually prop it up under the strings, but it's only held up really by the strings themselves, pushing down and that weight onto the instrument. That's really the only way that it's being held up. And then we have the tailpiece, which I already talked about a little bit right here, which holds the ends of the strings in place. And then we have an end button right here that holds the tailpiece from flying off. So that's super important. And then we have these F holes. So these are called F holes, which also serve a really great function, really important. And then if you look inside your instrument, if you look in through the F holes, like I'm just looking right in, you may see, and you should see actually, a small like wooden post, and we call that the sound post. And it connects the top to the bottom of the violin. And I'll talk a little bit about that too. Then we have a chin rest right here. This is where we actually put our chins um, when we play the instrument. And then some of you may or may not have this with your instrument yet. And we'll talk about this in a second too, but you may have a shoulder rest. So a shoulder rest is an accessory basically that you can attach to the bottom or the back part of your instrument, just like this. And it really helps make your posture a lot better, more comfortable. There are some performers who perform without it, and depending on the length of your neck and how your body is shaped, it may be appropriate that you don't use a shoulder rest. You will have to use your left hand a little bit differently later on in your development, but for these purposes, I do think it will be better to, have a shoulder rest. And I can actually talk a little bit about shoulder rests in just a second as well, because I think that will be super helpful if for those who do not have them. All right, so that is more or less. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything here. These are called the ribs other instrument. Um, and yeah, I don't think I'm really forgetting anything. Most violins, if not all of them, are made out of primarily a maple wood, and the top is almost always made out of spruce. So this, my violin, made out of spruce, the top plate right here. And then we have, like I said, ebony, and then everything else. So the sides here, and then the back. This is actually two pieces of wood combined for the back. Some violins have a one-piece back, but this is all maple. So the neck is and the scroll is all maple as well. But just the top is spruce, and those are all just for tonal properties. Okay, so the next one. So this is really important. If you do not have any of these parts on your instrument, so all the things that I just described, aside from perhaps the fine tuners, um, please send me a message so I can really help troubleshoot. Because if you don't really have, if you don't have four strings, for instance, or if you don't have a bridge or a chin rest, or maybe pegs or something like that, or you don't have a sound post. And even if you don't have a shoulder, we'll talk about shoulder rest in just a second, but if you don't have some of these things, it'll really not be great in your experience in trying to learn the violin at this moment. And so please let me know, tell me, give me a message on Skool, and then I'll work with you in trying to troubleshoot how you can either get whatever you need or point you in the right direction, basically. Okay, so let's move on. So okay, yeah. So now we're gonna understand the bow. So the bow, let me grab my bow here too. So we're gonna go over the parts of the bow here. This is my bow that I use. And so we have the tip. So this is basically the tip. All right. And most bows, they're made out of a lot of different types of materials, but most wooden bows are made out of um, a type of wood called percambuco, which is a really flexible type of wood. Um, and it's primarily grown in Brazil, actually. And it's getting increasingly hard to acquire for bow makers to actually use and make new instruments with, or new bows with. But they also make them out of carbon fiber or composite material, or just even plastic. And yeah, all work. Most of the professional model instruments and bows do use the Percambico. There's also I know some professionals that use carbon fiber bows and really enjoy them. But yeah, so this is the tip of the bow right here. This is a bit of a more fragile part of the instrument. Um, so be very careful with this part of the bow. And then here, we call this the frog specifically. So this block of wood here made out of ebony. And then the dot here is called the eye. And almost all violin bows will have that dot there. There are some that won't. I've certainly seen no eye here, um, but it's a little rare, okay? And then right here is called the screw. So if you it's how you loosen or tighten the bow hair, okay? So if you can see, this is pretty loose, actually. So yeah, that's pretty loose. But then if I screw it tighter, like this, turning it to the right, it gets a lot tighter, okay? So um, general care, you'll want it to be at least you'll want to be able to at least like have your pinky fit in through there, so not too tight, but also not too loose. All right. Um, but once you're finished playing, you will, and you put it into the case again, you will want to loosen the bow again. All right. So you'll want to loosen it pretty good actually. Um, that way that sometimes the wood can warp if it's tight for so long. So loosening the bow after you're finished using the instrument will help prevent warping and that kind of stuff. Okay. Now, obviously, this is the hair, so this part we try not to actually rub it or touch it or anything like that. Um, there will be, once we get to holding the bow with our hands and stuff, you will be, the thumb will touch the hair just on the side, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Um, and then we have the thumb grip right here, just this leathery piece of fabric, and that's where we actually put the thumb. And then we have the stick, and then this piece right here we call the head plate, and that really helps protect the tip of the bow. So the function is, if you dropped it, dropped the bow on the ground or something, this would kind of act as a helmet, and so the tip wouldn't get damaged, and you could just replace the head plate once more, and that's totally fine. That won't really affect the value of the bow or anything like that. Okay. So again, if you don't really have any parts of this bow, like if you don't have horsehair on it, or you don't have a screw, or some reason you don't have a frog, or I don't know, if there's something missing, do let me know so I can kind of help what's going on and figure it out so that you can use your violin bow and play the violin. All right, so now how the violin makes sounds. Here we go. So physics of sound here. This is really fascinating, I think. I think this is a really cool thing about the violin. So basically, how the violin makes sound. So when when we look at the horsehair actually under a microscope, you'll see these tiny little hooks, kind of like Velcro, and we put something called rosin on the bow, on the hair of the bow, and it will make it sticky. So those little hooks will actually grab the string as you're pulling the bow across the string. All right, and so the strings will vibrate. Okay, and as the strings vibrate, those vibrations get transferred down into the bridge here. All right, now this bridge acts as a transfer of vibrations to the top plate of the instrument. Okay, so string vibrates, goes to the bridge then vibrates the whole top plate of this instrument, and then the top plate then vibrates that post inside your instrument. Okay, and that post is connected to the back side of your instrument. So now that the string vibrates and it goes to the bridge, goes to the top plate, then goes to the sound post, then goes to the back part of your instrument, then that allows the entire hollow core of this instrument, of your violin, to actually vibrate all the molecules, the air molecules that are inside the instrument. And so the function of these F holes is to allow those air molecules to then carry those vibrations to the air outside of the instrument. And when that happens, you'll actually be able to hear the sound coming outside of the instrument. Yeah, so that's a really cool part. So if you pluck a string, and you can pluck all your strings. So all of these strings will basically go through that specific process. Go into the bridge, top plate, sound post, the back of the instrument, vibrate all those air molecules inside, and then vibrate the air molecules outside of the instrument as well. So super cool, I think. All right. Now, how to hold the violin. So here we're gonna get to our violin posture and actually putting the instrument underneath our our jaw. So the violin should eventually be supported between your jaw and your collarbone. So that means your left hand is completely free to move, right? And your fingers are free to play notes, and your shoulders should remain relaxed. So this will be really, really, really important when I show you this. The violin should not be hanging at all from your hand, and definitely should not be held up by squeezing your neck. Okay, so a lot of times I'll see beginners do things like this, and we'll talk about this more as well. Um, and yeah, or they'll just be like holding up the instrument with their left hand entirely, right? And so whenever you feel tension in your body or in your hand or something like that, that's usually a sign that something needs to get adjusted, okay? So this is the part where I want to talk about shoulder rests um, specifically. So shoulder rests will really help fill the space in between your body, so this part of your body, and the violin itself. Okay, so if I didn't have this, okay, you would see that there's a whole lot of space actually between the violin and the rest of my body. Um, so when I do have this, the shoulder rest, I'm actually able to fill in that space uh, all entirely with the shoulder rest, and it's super super comfortable. Okay, so these things are very very important, and not everyone uses the same type, and there is no real single perfect model. And I'll go through these right now. So there's more or less three different types of shoulder rests, and these they're always getting designed in different ways. But there's basically a sponge, or a standard shoulder rest, which I'll show you, and then an ergonomically designed one. So the one that I have currently is more ergonomically designed. It's made out of wood, and um, it uh, it basically, when I first got it, it didn't look like this. So over time, it more or less shaped to the contours of my own body. And so for me, it really works. For some people, it doesn't. And so these I think are a little 50-50, especially for beginners to use, because there's just a lot more that needs to be discovered and like figuring out what you really like or not. So I'll show you some recommendations in just a second. And also again, just like please message me if you ever feel tension or anything like that. And I can also help find a shorter rest individually, but I actually want to leave this part of the presentation and go over to yes. And so here I have my browser open, and I'm here at sharmusic.com, and this is really for those who are in the US and the United States. I'm not sure if Shar ships internationally, but if you're in the US or otherwise, you can check this too, or whatever other like music supply or music shop. Maybe there's a local one in your city. Um, I would definitely check them out. If you're in the US, you can check out Sharp Music. There's a lot of others, but you can go to this URL, and then you can see all these different types of shoulder rests here, right? And so basically, let me show you a few. And so like for instance, the sponge that they have. Let's see if they have. Oh yeah, so like this. So this is Zeros shoulder cushion. So this is kind of like a popular like type of sponge shoulder rest um, that you could definitely get. Um, I would say so like out of the sponge ones, these are good. I would recommend away from something like this. These are for people who maybe have extremely like more shorter necks. Um, and they're not really adjustable. So I would stay away from this. This is a little bit harder to use as a beginner. Um, these are a little bit more, so the Bond Musica are more of the line of the ergonomically designed ones. I would stay away from these other kinds of pads. This is one that a lot of people use, Viva La Musica. The Wolf one, I think, is good as a standard. I normally recommend Kuhn shoulder rests, and make sure you're getting a full size one, yeah, 4x4 one. We call that four size, or full size. Um, so yeah, I would definitely either get the Kuhn one here. These have collapsible um, feet, which can be really helpful if you're trying to put it in your case. Your case isn't very big. So I would definitely recommend either that or um, Some people like the Everest, but I find it a little bit challenging to stay on the instrument. This one is also good, Wolf. Um, it can it can bend quite a bit, so it's kind of in between an ergonomically designed one and just like your standard shoulder rest. So those are some recommendations here. I'm sure you can. Here's another. Oh, this is actually just a rubber band. No, never mind. Oh yeah, here's another kind of sponge one. These kinds of sponge ones I would recommend if you want something like that. Um, I wouldn't recommend the discs of the sponge. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend these for a beginner. All right. All right, let's go back here. All right. Okay, so now I will, yeah, I'll come and join you specifically with my violin, and I'll go even more in detail, kind of leave this presentation and go more in detail with you on how to hold the instrument. All right, hello there. I am back with talking about holding the violin specifically. Yeah, let's dive in. So, holding the violin. So, we're gonna go through exactly the posture holding the violin. So, we're gonna put the violin. I want you to hold the violin here. So, there's a little bit of a half circle here. All right, right under the neck of the instrument. I want you to put your thumb right there. Just like that, okay? And then I want you to rest your left hand right here on the side of the instrument. So your thumb is here, and then you're resting it like that, okay? So you'll hold it out in front of you, just like this, your left hand extended. All right, now I want you to turn the violin so that it's sideways like this, all right? So just like that. And then I want you to turn your head to the right and just put it right here where the collarbone is. Rest it right on top of the collarbone. You'll feel this part of the instrument rest right on the collarbone, okay? Now if you have a shoulder rest, make sure that you have that attached to the instrument, all right? And lightly let your head straighten back out, okay? So I'll show you this again. So we have the violin with our thumb on that half circle under the neck. We have it out in front of us, we turn it, and we put it right here as our head is tilted to the right, and bring our head to the left, okay? So this should feel, and your shoulder rest should be filling up this gap right here as well, okay? And one thing I don't want you to try and do is actually raise this shoulder, okay? So as you're putting it in, this all stays relaxed, okay? So everything here is staying relaxed. And the only thing that's really moving is the head tilt a little bit towards the violin, okay? And that's it. Okay, so your head should be more or less straight, okay? There could be a slight bend to the left, but not like this, okay? More or less, head straight. The neck isn't too far forward, like this, all right? And then, if this feels comfortable and you feel secure, start to take the hand away and let it by your side. If that feels not very safe for you, see what happens when you just slowly let the thumb away in the left hand, and then you can build a little bit more confidence with holding it there. All right. Now when you do this, a lot of times I'll start seeing beginners, as you take the thumb away, I see this in the left shoulder where you're trying to pinch it. No, you don't need that. Don't raise this part of your left shoulder. Okay? So everything's relaxed. It's just the natural weight of the head allowing the violin to stay naturally here. Okay? So that's more or less the how we structure that. If putting your violin, your left hand away, and taking it off the instrument, if that feels super uncomfortable, totally fine, and it's actually it's actually pretty normal. A lot of people feel uncomfortable with that, and so you can just hold it right here. The best thing and the most important thing is that you're not having a lot of tension in the neck or in the shoulders. That's really the most important thing here. Okay, so every time we put the violin up to our shoulder, we want to kind of do a relaxation check. Okay, so we want to check if our neck feels tense, especially this part of our neck, or this part, sorry, of this part of our neck feels tense, and then we want to make sure that our shoulders aren't coming up like this while we're holding the instrument. Okay, so we just want to make sure that's all. So sometimes I like to think about my shoulders just relaxing a lot more. Just kind of like, it's almost a little bit like yoga when you like purposely pull things down a little bit. We just do a little bit of a check of the body and be aware of it. That's really, really important here. And so for this part of today, first day, the only thing I really want you to do in terms of an exercise or in terms of your practice, and we'll go over this a little bit in the next part of the video, but I want you to basically just practice doing this process where we hold out the violin in front of us, turn it, put it up under our chin, and then see if we can let the left hand go. And again, if that's a little bit uncomfortable, totally fine. We can just leave it here. But if you can, let it rest by your side, okay? And if we can do this and remain relaxed in our shoulders and our neck, that is the most amazing thing that could happen in this moment in the lesson, okay? So if we can practice this and just put in your reps, it's about, we could do this 10 times today as a part of your practice. That's really, oh, I didn't even do it. So out in front, turn, go out like this, put the hand to the side. So if we do that about 10 times, I think that's a really great place to start. One other thing that I think is really helpful in this process is breathing. So if this all feels really overwhelming, something that I really like to show some beginners is when we bring out the violin, we turn it and we put it back to our left shoulder. We take a nice breath, inhale and exhale, and then allow the left hand to rest. And it kind of naturally relaxes the body that way too. Okay? So that is more or less holding the violin on the left side of our body, like this. Make sure it's the left side of your body. If you're trying to do the right side, it really won't work. Violins aren't really designed that way yet. So yeah, I'll see you back in the presentation. All right, so welcome back here to the presentation. So we're in part 4 of how to hold the violin, and this is the practice assignment. So, and I mentioned this a little bit in when we were with our violin. So the exercise that I was showing you, where you basically put the violin to under your chin and then let go, I call that basically 0 to 1 exercise. I just call that because 0 is basically not holding the violin, 2 holding the violin is then 1. And so if you can hold the violin comfortably for 5 seconds, 10 times without your left hand, I think that's a really great benchmark for the next part of today. And so doing that is really helpful. So do 10 repetitions of that. Just get your reps in. It shouldn't take more than a minute. And yeah, focus on your relaxed shoulders, relaxed neck, and not squeezing any part of your upper body to hold the violin. All right. So now success check in this part of the in the day. Um, your violin should feel balanced. Okay, your shoulders should remain relaxed the entire time, and you can briefly release your left hand. If we have those three things, we're doing really, really well. If something feels a little tight here or there, or if you still feel a little uncomfortable leaving with your left hand, that's totally fine too. And also very, very normal. So don't freak out if you feel like you're not doing well, if you feel uncomfortable leaving your left hand, that's totally fine. Honestly, a lot of beginners feel that way as well. So you're not alone at all. And again, if tension specifically, if you do feel tension somewhere, I would really love to work with you about that. And so um, do message me on Skool, and I'll do my best to help with any kind of tension related issues or shoulder rest things, or really honestly anything at all. I love to try to troubleshoot and help with that. All right, so here we go. Now we are moving to how to hold the violin bow. All right. So first thing first here is rosin. So rosin is, and I briefly mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but rosin is something that allows the bow hair to actually grip the string. All right. So remember I talked about if you looked at the bow hair under a microscope, it would kind of look like a little these hooks like Velcro. So rosin is that substance that really helps um, make the horsehair grab the violin strings. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about applying rosin to the bow hair because sometimes beginners get new violins and the bow hair has no rosin on them. So they'll go and try to make a sound with the instrument and nothing comes out because there's no actual rosin. And so this is actually, let me get my rosin real quick here. So rosin looks, and some rosin is in different shapes and size. This is a little bit of a fancy one, um, but it comes in basically a little circle, or sometimes they're rectangles, and they're encased in wood, but it's basically tree sap. It's a type of tree sap, and this is what mine looks like that I use. And yeah, so this is how you apply rosin to your bow. You've never done it before. Here's my bow, and so what I like to do is take the bow in my right hand, have the rosin in my left hand, and you start at the frog, okay? And so what I like to do is actually move the rosin, keep the bow steady, and I'll move it towards the tip of the bow, okay? And normally just like 5 passes is okay, or so, something like that. It's totally fine. A lot of times people don't really rosin this part of the bow, or they won't rosin this part of the bow, and so that's sometimes a problem. Um, but yeah, so definitely make sure your bow has rosin. If you've never rosined your bow before ever, and it comes without rosin, then like if it basically if the hair kind of looks more like this color rather than this brighter color, then it may not have rosin on it before. Or if you test out the bow, like try to move the bow across the strings on the violin and it makes no sound, then it probably doesn't have rosin on it. So it will definitely need way more than 5 or 10 passes. Um, and yeah, so you'll have to pretty much rosin up the bow a lot more than just the 5 to 10 passes. Okay, so there is such thing as too much rosin on a bow, and it's not the most like severe thing or necessarily harmful. It just it'll take a while for it to feel normal. So if you ever see like a lot of dust coming off the string while you're moving, like tons of dust, then you may have put too much rosin on your bow, and it'll just like kind of make the top of the violin have a lot of dust on it, and just wipe that off with a micro fiber cloth. And then sometimes also too much rosin will make the sound really scratchy. Uh, and so sometimes that will, it will go away once the rosin starts to come off, the more you play. But those are two signs that you might have over rosin the bow, okay? Um, great. So now learning the bow hold with pencil. I like to approach this kind of way, or a pen, pencils are great. Um, I have a pencil right here. So pencils are great because especially if they have edges to them, this specifically has edges to it. Um, if you have a pen, that's also fine. I can show you with a pen too. Um, but learning how to use either a pencil or a pen, or even a straw, like a plastic straw or a metal straw, those also can work here. Anything that's lighter than basically what the bow is, because sometimes I've seen some people with their fingers might not have the same amount of dexterity that kind of violinists have built up over time. And so sometimes the joints will collapse a little bit, and it'll actually be hard to achieve the things that we're really trying to get in the bow hold. So I first like to kind of approach it from this angle. Okay, so let's get in. So using a pencil or a straw, I'll go over where the thumb, index, ring, and pinky finger will rest. All right. And so yeah, so I'll do that right now. So basically, if we first I'll approach it from this angle. So we have the hand, if we just kind of turn it over in our palms like this, and then we naturally let it hang over. Just let it drop. Let's try it again. Do it again. Yeah, so naturally just let it change. So believe it or not, this is more or less a bow hold, more or less. I'll kind of contort this a little bit, but we kind of get this bow hold already, more or less like this, okay? So where the thumb will go, so the thumb goes underneath, and I'll put it here, okay? And there's a slight bend to it, okay? So we put it underneath, and then the pinky rests like this, and make sure you're holding it with your left hand right here so that it doesn't drop. So your pinky will just rest on top, nice and curved like this. And so you have your thumb and pinky kind of like this. And it's really the side of the thumb that I'm putting the bow on, or the pencil in this case. All right. And then we just rest the ring finger and then the index finger, and then this index finger will just kind of naturally all curved over, right? And so we're basically already in our bow hold, right? So I'll show you this again. So we have the palm over, we just move the palm upside down, and then we put in our thumb, our pinkies on top, drape over the ring and middle fingers, and then the index finger just naturally is right there, okay? So one of the most important things here that I see a lot of beginners do is that fingers are really straight, or you're squeezing, like you're really trying to grip the pencil or bow. And so in this case, everything should be really light. If you want, as a little test, you can do the top fingers. You wouldn't be able to do it with your thumb. But this is basically it. Don't squeeze up with the thumb or anything, just everything really relaxed, okay? Make sure this is flat, right? We don't want something like this right now, okay? So just flat and natural, all right? So that's how we do it with the pencil. And then on the next slide, I will come out of this presentation one more time and then show you with my bow and go with kind of transferring what we just learned with the pencil over to the violin bow. All right, so I'll see you soon. Hello, welcome back. We're here with holding the violin bow. So let's get started with this. So again, just to review, to get basically the sense of the violin bow and how relaxed it is, we have the palm facing up like this, and then we just turn it over. We more or less get that shape of our bow. Yeah. So one more time, I have it like this, and I just turn over the palm. We more or less have that already there. Okay. So now I have my bow with me right here. Okay. So I want to show you how I would do this. So with my left hand, I'm going to grab just the stick right over here. Okay, you won't see it in the screen, but that's what's happening. Okay, so I'll show you here. So I'll basically take my right thumb and place it right here. Okay, so I have it just the tip of my thumb here, right on the violin bow. All right, now if this is uncomfortable, I'll show you another place you can put your thumb. You can also put it right here for beginners, which is this silver part, this metal. You can place it right here. But for now, I'm going to show you this way, and do try it this way. Now again, it's totally fine. Your thumb should be 100% bent like this. Yeah, almost a 90-degree angle. And if that's too uncomfortable, if it's a little bit bent like this, more like that, that's totally fine as well. But definitely bent and inside on the thumb grip. Okay, some people try to put it in this little nook right here, but that's not really great. It should be on the thumb grip. Okay, and then you can even see on my thumb has a little bit of an indentation right here from playing the violin so much. Okay, totally fine for the thumb to touch the hair as well. Now I want to just place the pinky curved on top of the stick. Okay, some sticks are round, mine has edges to them, so I just place it right on top. All right, now I want to relax my ring finger. I want to put it on the eye actually of the bow, and then this relax right next to it, and I want the index finger to wrap around. Okay, now the index finger, I have a big bump right here, which is really a callus from playing the violin so much over my life. And that's really where I rest the index finger. All right, so I'll show you from this angle. So the thumb rests here, or if you don't like that, you can put it here. Pinky shows here, nice and curved. All right, the tip of the pinky. The ring finger is on the eye of the bow. The middle finger rests right next to the ring finger, and then the index finger wraps around. Okay? All right, and then if you let go of the left hand, and if that feels uncomfortable, just keep holding the bow with your left hand. It's totally fine. All right, now I will continue to put my thumb there. And this is more or less what the bow hold should look like. All right, so the knuckles aren't up like this or contorted, anything like that. We don't want our wrists to have like a little peak. We want this to be flat, and we don't want it to be a little bit like this. I see a lot of beginners try to hold the bow like this. You can see my thumb is completely straight, and there's a lot of tension here, especially right in this part of my hand. That's not great. And so we do want to bend the thumb so there's not a lot of tension here. This is a lot softer now. And then our fingers are nice and curved. We don't want very straight fingers or anything like that. Yeah. Now, if holding the bow without your left hand like this, will probably feel really uncomfortable. You'll feel a lot of weight into your pinky, which is totally normal. It should, like, you will feel that. And I'll describe a little bit about the functions of each finger. But the function of the pinky is specifically to lift up the bow, okay? So this is the first kind of real look at how the bow grip looks. And if this is super uncomfortable, you can go back to the pencil, practice the grip there, and then come back to the bow. That's really, really helpful. But I think in terms of an exercise, something that we can do here with the bow, and this may be a little bit more of the trickier part, and it usually is with most beginners, is to actually just practice like holding with the left hand the stick of the bow and just starting to form the grip, okay? From 0 basically to 1. So having the grip, not having the grip, and going back to it. So this is what I call a 0 to 1 exercise. So go through the motions here: the thumb, pinky, ring finger, right? Middle finger, then index, making sure everything. And if you feel comfortable enough, you can then, like, if putting the bow grip feels pretty easy, then try taking away the left hand. But this is really good enough. Just kind of getting these reps in where you're just bringing to the bow grip into the bow. Practice grabbing, getting the bow situated. All right, and again, you can, if it's more comfortable, you can put your thumb down here for now, and then over time, we can transition having the bow or the thumb underneath on the thumb grip. Okay, so that's the bow grip for now. That's how everything should look, how everything should feel. Now, the next part of this is, so the 0 to 1 exercise, I'd like you all to do that 20 reps. We can do 20 reps of that. I think that's good enough. That will really set us well for the end of this day. But that's kind of the next marker here. 20 reps of that, and I'm going to show you a little of these bow hold exercises here that may help. So this one is called windshield wipers, and you more or less, you have your bow grip, okay? And hold the bow up and down vertically. So the tip of the bow will be pointing up towards the ceiling, and just rotate the wrist back and forth. Basically like it's a windshield wiper, okay? And just move the wrist, all right? And you'll want to at least feel like the pinky is pushing down on the bow to make it go the other way. Yeah, just so you can kind of strengthen out that pinky. So, and watch your thumb, making sure it doesn't shift too much, okay? And we should maintain the bow grip throughout all of this, all right? So this is the windshield wiper exercise. And then the other one is nose taps. So this is about awareness. So basically, without staring at the bow, slowly try to tap, put your tip of the bow to your nose. Now this is a kind of silly one, but make sure you have your bow grip still. Just hold the bow out and just out in front of you, kind of like this. Obviously it will be a little bit lower, but just for the sake of being able to see, basically like this. And then you just want to have awareness of the tip of the bow. And so if you can tap your nose with it, just kind of go back and forth. It's a little silly, but, and you don't want to like stare at the bow either as it's coming towards you. The whole point is having awareness of it so that you really know you have awareness basically of the tip of the bow as you're playing. This is one thing that we do, and so we can really kind of manipulate where the bow is moving, specifically from here, okay? So this is really good thing to practice, and you just tap your nose at the tip of the bow, okay? So that's one of the other exercises. So in the next slide in the presentation, I'll talk a little bit more about these exercises and the reps and what to watch out for. And then the other exercise is actually getting the violin. So let me grab my violin. And actually practice putting the bow just on the string, not making sound. So we'll remember we have our thumbs like this on the string, or on the back of the instrument. Our left hand, bring out in front of us, turn it, put it under our chin, and basically we can keep our left hand here for now and just put the bow on the string. Okay, we'll just put it on the A string and then lift it off. And that's all we really gotta practice. We don't have to try to make sound. So make sure when you put it on the string, your bow is really relaxed, your bow grip. You don't feel like you're holding it, it's just resting right on the string, okay? You may make sound in this exercise, which is totally normal and totally fine, but not necessarily the point of it. It's more about being able to just put the bow on the string. That's it. Okay? Just slowly allow the bow to land on the string without too much chaotic movements. And it's all about control. Okay? Now, I'm probably making this look really, really easy. And that's because I've been doing it for almost 25 years now. And so don't feel like you have to exactly look like what I'm doing. It will look different, and that's totally normal. That's totally fine. And part of the process. It's part of the process of learning. You're not doing anything wrong. Your body is just learning. Your body is learning how to conform to the instrument and learning how to make the necessary adjustments in order to play the violin, and that's all it is. The first time I picked up the violin and I tried to learn, just as you all are, I struggled with the same exact things. I couldn't really hold the bow where I am right now. Actually, I had to place my thumb down here. I had to do a whole lot of things. My posture wasn't really set up well, so that's why I'm really wanting to make this course and make sure that you guys know that what is actually normal in learning the violin. All right. So this is directly through hundreds of students that I've taught over the years, and things that I've seen and common mistakes, and just sharing that with you all, and trying to make this experience as best and meaningful for you and your own violin journey. Okay, so that is basically how to hold the bow. So I'll catch you back in the presentation. All right, welcome back to the presentation here. We'll close out how to hold the bow. So practicing the exercises that we just learned. So basically the bow hold repetitions. So the 0 to 1 type of exercise where we're just going directly to trying to form the bow grip every single time from nothing. So we do 20 reps of those, and then the windshield wipers where we are turning the bow back and forth. We do those 10 times, and then the nose taps, we're tapping the tip of the bow to our nose slowly, do those 10 times, and then just placing the bow on the string without any intentional noise, doing that 10 times, and just making sure that our bow grips are relaxed. That will be great. And then success check here with all of these exercises. The thumb is bent. If you're putting it on the thumb grip, now if it's on the bottom of the frog, then it probably won't be really bent. And so Therefore, that doesn't really apply. Make sure that your pinky is always curved. That is really, really important. So we really have this curved pinky here. It shouldn't be straight like this, or even sometimes I see a lot of beginners, it's hard for me to do, but it looks a little bit like that. That's not curved. That's not curved at all. So we really want this arc with the pinky, and then no squeezing, so no big gripping and the bow grip. All right, perfect. Now we are moving on to how to make our very first sound on the violin. This is super, super exciting. All right, so there are 3 ingredients to sound production on the violin. These are the 3 parts of sound production, basically. So you have bow weight or pressure, um, bow speed, and sounding point, or sometimes people call it contact point. Okay, so bow weight is specifically how much bow pressure is being put on the string. Okay, so one of the functions of the index finger is to actually apply weight into the bow by pushing in, and that will basically be the single factor of your bow grip that will be applying and controlling the pressure or weight that we're putting into the violin or the string. Okay, so bow weight, when you add weight, you will create a different sound or more volume and things like that. Okay, now bow speed is specifically how quickly or slowly the bow moves across the string. So you could have a slow bow speed, or you could have a completely super fast bow speed. And those two create completely different sounds as well. And then sounding point is basically where exactly you put the bow on the string itself. Okay, so you could put the bow close to the bridge, or you could put the bow close to the fingerboard. And depending on where you're actually putting it on the string, it will create a different sound actually. And we'll go way, way more in depth in this. But these are really necessary and kind of introducing you to them, because when things start being a little scratchy or um, maybe glassy sounding or thin sounding in your tone, uh, these 3 ways are going to be the direct links to how to make it a fuller sound or more smoother sound, and drastically improve how your sound or tone is being produced. Okay, so these are really the 3 things that will determine all these things. And this is actually something that, you know, it's really, really simple stuff, but it's something that um, most professionals or a lot of even conservatory trained musicians struggle with understanding and actually grasping. So this is actually, you're getting a lot of beginners don't get this information. You don't you mostly I didn't get this information until um, I was in high school studying at a conservatory. So um, this is really, really important. It's also something I think is important when a beginner starts to try to create sound, because you start getting all this information and sound, and you're not entirely sure how it's getting created or why. And so when we understand these things and these properties, and start to understand how we can control them, then the learning, I think, gets a lot quicker towards the goals that we have on the violin itself. So this is super important, and I'll of course go more and more into this. Um, but for now, I'm going to join you back with my violin and bow, and I'll explain some straight bow geometry real quick, and then join you back in the presentation. Okay? See you soon. All right, welcome back here. So we will get into exactly trying to create your very first sound on the violin, which is super, super exciting. So before we actually get into making sound, I really want to show you what I mean by straight bow geometry, because that's where we left off in the presentation. So basically, one of the core ways also that we're going to create the very best sound possible is actually by keeping what we call a straight bow. So what I mean by straight bow is that the bow, as it goes across the string, okay, the bow doesn't turn like this on the string, okay? So this, if you see the bow kind of going in this way sometimes, this is not straight. Or sometimes I see beginners trying to play the violin like this, where the bow is not straight either. So we really want it to be entirely straight. So as I basically go towards the tip, the bow will stay straight, or as I go towards the frog, the bow will also stay straight, okay? So the way to achieve this, now we're not gonna start playing with full bows right away, but I wanna make sure you understand this before we get there, okay? So how we achieve this is basically a bit of geometry. So if I make an imaginary point that is right here when I'm at the frog in the bow, so imaginary point 1, which is my hand, 2, my elbow, and 3, my shoulder, they will create basically a triangle, see? So 1, 2, and then 3. So if you connect all those dots, they'll create a triangle. So now when I go towards the middle of the bow, I'll stop and show you a new geometry shape. Okay, so now in the middle of the bow, if I create one more imaginary point, I have the middle of the bow, so the contact point where the bow is on the string, I have my hand, my elbow, and my shoulder. Now we have a rectangle, okay? Now, as we go back to the tip, we now have a triangle again, right? So this is a point, this is a point, and then this is a point, okay? So that is basically the geometry here and the straight bow geometry, basically. So if we can achieve those shapes as we're going across the string, up and down bow. So up bow is when the bow is traveling, the frog is traveling up, and then down bow is when the frog is traveling down towards the ground, okay? So those will also be terms I will use sometimes. But in terms of straight bow geometry, if we can maintain a straight bow, we will always be achieving more or less the best sound we possibly can on your instrument, okay? So again, you can see how those shapes start to get created as I go down and up for the bow, okay? So I'll move on from there. Now, what I want you to do now is practice getting the bow hold, right? And then practice getting the violin up, right? And we're still gonna be holding the violin here, all right? We have our bow hold, and then put the bow on the string, but in the middle of the bow, okay? Now, I want you to go to the tip of the bow slowly, okay? And you'll want to extend the arm out and go back towards the middle. Now, if you feel like you can't really reach the tip, that's totally fine. What you can do is go just a little bit and back, but slowly move the bow and make sure our contact point, so where we are specifically on the string, is right in between the fingerboard here and the bridge, okay? So don't get too close over here and don't get too close towards the bridge. So you really want to be right in the middle, right in between those 2 points. And that's what we call our contact point. So I could have a contact point that's closer to the bridge or closer to the fingerboard, but for this, we want it really right in the middle, okay? And so we'll just want to move the bow to the tip and then back to the middle. And just go as far as you can. If it's a little bit too uncomfortable, going all the way to the tip. But see if you can, challenge yourself. Okay, now, once we do that, well, first of all, you just made your first sound on the violin. That's incredible. And you just started today. You learned how to hold it, you learned how to hold the bow, and now you're making sound. You're making sound on the open A string, all right? So, and we're doing this all on the open string. I don't think I mentioned that. So we are doing this on the open A string, which is this string right here. It's the second to the highest string, okay? So your E string is on this right here, and it should be that pitch, but this is the A string right here. All right, so yeah, congrats on making your very first sound. So throughout all of this, you really want to try and maintain the bow hold. So if you look at your bow hold after doing this a little bit, so like going from the middle to the tip, you may have noticed that maybe your bow grip has gone up here, and then like your ring finger isn't on the eye anymore. So you'll want to watch that, okay? So you'll really want to watch, making sure that you maintain the bow as you get towards the tip, okay? So that's super important. Now see how far you can get. You might only be able to use, this much bow, and that's totally fine. That's totally normal. It's your very first day, okay? So if you're not able to get all the way to the tip, completely fine, completely normal. Keep practicing, and you will eventually, once you get into your reps, you'll definitely be able to go towards the tip. Now, another thing I want to mention here is if your violin is too out to the left, then it will be a lot harder to try to reach a straight bow. And also, you may run into something like this. Like if I put my violin way out to the left of my body, my bow will start to go this way, okay? And so you may have to change the angle here. So it may not be, you may not be able to have it all the way out this way. You may have to come a little bit more in front of yourself. And it really depends on how long your arms are. So if your arms are a little bit shorter, if you're not super tall, then, and I'm only 5'10", and so I'm not that tall either. But if you're smaller than that, then you may have to bring your violin out right in front of you, actually. So if that is a little bit hard for you to reach, then you may need to actually bring your violin out in front of you, in front of your chin, okay? So that's something to watch out for. But you want to find the angle where you can comfortably go to the tip and still maintain a straight bow. So you may have to feel like your arm is really going to straighten out in front of you. Almost like you're pushing open a door or opening it. Something like that. It's almost like that feeling. Okay? Awesome. Okay, so now if we can maintain the bow hold, maintain a straight bow, what the next step in this, and this will be totally a challenge, so if you're not up for it, it's totally fine. It's not necessarily required, but it's just an extra step here to keep challenging you and keep on growing. So one challenge for today, for day one, will be to actually use your whole bow, okay? So start from the frog. So we really want to start all the way over here in the bow and try to go all the way from the frog to the tip. See how far you can get. many times you're able to um, do a long bow, so full bow from frog to tip, back from tip to frog. And if you can only do maybe the lower half, so maybe only go from frog to the middle of the bow, and then stop, and then go to the tip, and then go back to the middle, stop, and then go to the frog again. That could be also a helpful way if it's really uncomfortable at this point. Or if all of that feels super uncomfortable, which is also normal, totally fine, and happens to many beginners, because we all learn differently, is to just take in the middle of the bow. This is also perfectly fine and acceptable. Totally fine. Okay, so we're moving on. This is really fast progress. Congratulate yourself, because this is not easy, and you're doing incredibly well. Again, progress will look different, but it's normal to feel uncomfortable at this point. It's totally normal to feel a little bit overwhelmed. But I'm here, and I'm here to tell you that it's completely normal to feel that way. When I first started playing the violin, I also felt that way. And look at, just sticking with it has brought me and created a whole career for myself. But I'm here to help you end this course to reach your goals, and we're gonna play your first piece in the next 7 days, and I'm so excited. So I'm gonna see you back in the presentation shortly. All right, welcome back. Congratulations. We are to the end of day one, and this is your final day one assignment. You should totally celebrate at this point, because you've done so much, truly have done so much today. So congratulations, you made it through day one, and you made your very first sound on the violin. That is incredible. A lot of beginners, first day, do not get this far, and so pat yourself on the back. This is an incredible milestone in your journey of learning the violin. So you have learned how the violin works, the parts of the violin, how it creates sound, the parts of the bow, how it works. You've learned how to hold the violin, your posture, your setup. You've learned how to hold the bow. You've learned all these different exercises for how to hold the bow, how to strengthen your bow grip, how to approach it from the pencil to the bow, the windshield wipers, all the above. You've now learned how to make your very first sound. You learned about straight bow geometry. You learned about the 3 core principles of sound production and tone production on the instrument, which honestly, conservatory trained people don't really learn until they're in college. And so, congratulations, you are learning so much and progressing quite quickly here. So, in your final assignment for day one, um, this is what we will be doing. So, I want you to try and do 10 long bows on the A string, okay? And that's the string that we were just working on. And if that is, if the long bows, so when I mean long bows, I mean from frog to tip, back from tip to frog. Now, if that is super uncomfortable, you can just do half bows, so either frog to middle or middle to tip, or you can just stay in the middle of the bow. But I'd love for you to challenge yourself, see if you can do the long bows and maintain a straight bow. I think that is perhaps some of the most challenging parts. And if you can do that, then you are in an incredible, like absolutely incredible place in learning the violin, and producing an incredible sound as well. Okay. And I'd love for you to record a 15 to 30-second video, show your bow hold, your posture, and at least one bow stroke. So one long bow, or perhaps a half bow, or just staying in the middle on the A string. Post the video in the Skool community, and you will see how that should be formatted in the video notes in Skool. And yeah, I'm so excited to see your videos. Again, if there is anything that you may feel tension or you have a question about things, I'm here as a resource. Do reach out to me and I will make sure to answer your questions. And I'll see you for day two, where we'll begin learning our first notes and also taking the next step towards playing your very first piece on the violin. I'm so excited for you. I'll see you in day two.